Hi guys, Ray again. Last year I made a video on how to build a homemade lathe just with the items in my workshop, but it was very long. It ended up being over an hour long. So I am re-editing that video from over a year ago into a much more condensed version. If you want to see the video in greater detail, there'll be a link in the upper right and in the description of this video. So I started with an old buffing motor I had lying around and had to take the buffing shafts off of the motor. After that, I found a shaft that I had lying around, no idea how old it was, and had to polish down the diameter in my other lathe in order to get it to fit the bearings. Once the polishing was complete, I was able to assemble the headstock, which was the bearings, the shaft, and a pulley I had lying around in my box of pulleys. Once I had that assembled, I needed to divert my attention to the design and construction of the bed. None of this lathe was planned. It was 100% improvised just from the items I had in my shop. So I had to do a little thinking of how to get this done. The 2x lumber I had lying around, so it was a very easy choice for using that to assemble the bed and most of the components of the lathe. I had to fine-tune the headstock, not unusual. Most of the parts needed a little fine-tuning during the assembly, and I had to assemble and disassemble many times to get everything lined up and straight. Once the headstock was complete, I needed to think about the tailstock, and a little bit of mocking up and thinking, I ended up designing something quite simple with only 4 pieces of wood. Again, this is just the materials that I had around the shop, and I had to improvise the entire construction. One interesting detail is for the tailstock, I ended up using a bicycle hub. Once again, the link to the original video is up in the upper right of the screen, and you can see all of the details about the specifics. Here we can see the tailstock coming together. Next, I need to drill the hole for the bicycle hub. Best way to do that was to actually put a drill in the chuck and line up the tailstock in order to give me the correct position for drilling. Drilling the hole to line up the bicycle hub was straightforward. I used a tile cutting bit available in all the home centers. The diameter was just slightly less than the hub, so I would be able to fine-tune it on the spindle sander. Next, I needed the spindle on the tailstock, the actual center point. For that, I used a threaded rod that fits my bicycle hub and sharpened a point on it. Put nuts on both sides, and it gave me the ability to adjust. After the tailstock, I needed to turn my attention to the tool rest. And for that, I had a piece of steel lying around the shop that I was able to take and cut it down into a more useful dimension. For the tool rest itself, I used a piece of 4x4 that I had in the back corner. But I did cut it in a kind of useful way Very unusual shape as far as the tool rest is concerned, but the shape is what I was able to cut out of the piece, and then clad the upper surface where the tool actually rests with a piece of stainless steel that I had in my metal bucket. I keep a bucket of metal leftover parts and pieces that I can take pieces from as I need them. It's very handy. It's come in very handy over the years. I applied a bevel on the wood to make it easier to rest the tool and provide me with plenty of clearance from the tool with the wood. And then the final assembly. I realized I needed some runners on the tool rest in order to elevate the steel so that the head could clear the table. I widened the platform for the bed, giving me enough surface so that the lathe would be stable. The remaining 2x lumber and plywood again was lying in the shop, and I was able to fashion together a suitable place to mount the motor to the headstock. The motor mount needed to have some adjustability in order to tighten the belt, and for that I made some slots in the plywood and had a piece of metal on the underside to act as a clamp when I tightened the motor. One thing I realized is that the motor was actually running in reverse. Luckily this was a reversible motor and I was able to reverse the rotation. One thing you don't see is how I made the spur drive. For that, I will put a link in the upper right so you can catch how that was manufactured. And here we are turning wood. All in all, not bad. Thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit the little bell to stay up to date on all my future videos. Thanks again.